Hey guys, hope you guys are doing well. Just wanted to go through some of the updates and stop sale and recall progress. Just a little bit more information to share into some of the previous experiences I had with the recalls and whatnot. But first, I just wanted to show you my seat cowl. So this is a cover that I got from Amazon. I did modify a little bit with some graphics there, and also I plastic dipped this part just because the original plastic and paint wasn't perfect. It was only 80 bucks, so it wasn't a big deal. It's not perfect, but that's what it looks like. I know it looks a little bit too busy, but from just the overall bike point of view, you can see that it's not that busy. Looks cool from the front. Follows that design all the way to the tail. Yeah, so just more information to share, notes from my previous experiences from dealing with recalls and research into recalls, things like service bulletins and figuring out remedies for yourself. As you guys know, I've had some issues with my previous two cars with direct injection, namely the L15 Honda engines with the 1.5T. And then, I also have some experience with dealing with the recalls from the unintended acceleration recall from Toyota, as well as their latest one with the Toyota Tundra Turbo V6 replacement. They actually are replacing all 200,000 engines out in the wild, which is just crazy. So GM also had a few interesting recalls, including their ignition recall from way back. If you guys remember, they have had some issues with their ignition, where the keys go in, it just turns off all of a sudden, right? And yeah, it's just from notes from that and their latest recall for failing engines on their L87 V8s. Basically, the connecting rods and crank components can fail due to issues with oiling. So the way they fixed that was just simply updating their oil viscosity from 0.20 to 0.40. So basically a thicker oil. And a little bit more on the thicker oil thing. Basically, oil, when you go thin, it improves fuel economy, fuel efficiency. And as you guys know, CAFE standards, corporate average fuel economy standards, have really, caused a lot of issues with, just overall design of engines. The big manufacturers, car companies, have had to really just needed to change the way they do things. And I get it, electric vehicles are coming in and they're trying to make the existing ICE vehicles more efficient. That's fine, but at what cost? That's the question. So for why these things happen with these type of updates and engine designs and direct injection implementation, it is really to satisfy CAFE emission standards and things like Euro 5 emission standards, and then further to satisfy upper management expectations and shareholder expectations for, the constant pursuit of better profits, cost cutting, and, this type of cost cutting and, these emission standards regulations really hamstrings companies and their engineers. And to be frank, a lot has happened since COVID. Inflation, supply chain issues, and availability for workforce talent, right? these challenges are real, and not to give Kawasaki and GM and Honda a pass, but certainly it has been a tough few years for many. For the recall, this recall for this the 6R 636 engine, there is a certain possibility, certainly a possibility, that there's an inherent flaw in the crank bearing design, maybe even the metallurgy, or spec, or shape, or design overall, right? Or maybe even a flaw in the engine itself for the 24 and 25s. The engine has been updated immensely to get past the Euro 5 emission standards, and they've also increased the mid-range torque in exchange for higher end power, less higher end power anyway. And this engine has also been around for a few decades, and now this change, along with others, including some cost-cutting parts, namely the top end of the engine. Apparently the valve retainers are less quality. Anyways, it is due to regulations and to satisfy shareholders by cost cutting. I'd imagine, at the time when Euro 5 emissions was imposed on motorcycles, Kawasaki was thinking of giving up on the 636 and going towards what Yamaha has done for the R6 and the R1. Now we have the R7 and R9. And I'm glad that Kawasaki kept the 636, and hopefully this is just a small batch of bearings that went into the US market. I'm glad, to see this bike still existing today, right? Other than the Honda CBR 600RR, this is by far the best looking, middle class sport bike, and very, very inexpensive for what you get. Because for the Honda, you pay a few $1,000s more. You guys chime in on how much exactly, but this bike is just a bargain, really, if you look at it. Chime in, but I think US dollars is under 10,000. Is that right? So you see, when this type of issue come up, this type of safety issue with the possibility of the engine seizing, right? The companies have to really protect themselves, and they must do a stop sale and a do not ride notice ASAP to cover the butts legally. It is in case something happens. And as per Two Wheel Dyno Works, shout out to them, they have tunes of over 1,000 units, and none of them have blown up. So of course, when one does blow up, Kawasaki's management need to find out a way to right away to see what happened and do their best to use their parts and manufacturing accounting to locate the batch of affected bikes right away. And it's no small feat. There are so many variables involved, right, in this type of supply chain and manufacturing, and they really don't want to say anything until they get all their information and assess the situation correctly, and then formulate a rollout and fix. On the meantime, all of the information we are given, with all of the information, we can take it for granted that the bikes are only affected in the US, because no other notices have been put towards the international markets. As it is a major safety concern and recall, Kawasaki knows they must cover the butts. So I'm in Canada, so hopefully it is true that is only affects only the States units. The EU hasn't gotten any notices either. So from what we know, it is not an inherent issue with the design of the engine itself, and not all of the number 5 bearings in the 24-25 models are affected. So hopefully that's the case. And sooner or later they will figure out which batch of US bikes are affected, and of course this is a speculation, right? And we may not get a blanket recall of all the World 636 engines. This would suck if all of them were faulty, right? One more note is, who here has a law degree in this type of recalls and international laws? Because there's a possibility that the US has the most stringent recall laws for the rollout of this type of major safety recall, and that the rest of the world isn't as strict. That is possible. And maybe the rest of the world is more lenient, so they don't have to issue a notice right away. I can't imagine that's the case, because usually the EU is more strict. But anyways, you guys chime in, see what your thoughts are, and as always, ride safe and have a great day. If you guys have any information to share, please feel free.